So, how are you all today? I kept getting questions about pandemics and how bad is it, and so I thought I'd show you the latest way that I've learned to wrap a scarf around my face so that I can go out in public and not have to wear a mask. So this is, I'm not sure how effective it is, but this is exactly what I am wearing to church now because the churches have opened back up, but you have to wear a mask while you're in church. So that is what I'm wearing to church. So the one question that I got this week that I wanted to address was about the historic pandemics that you have been hearing about in some of our lessons, and how bad are they comparatively, because I did get a question from someone regarding that this week. So the winning question was about death rates from different viruses, and it was asking about how many deaths have occurred due to COVID-19, which is the pandemic we're dealing with right now. It's also known as the coronavirus. How many deaths occurred due to the Spanish flu, and how many deaths occurred due to the Black Plague? Now, these are not the only pandemics that have occurred in world history, but they are some of the ones that we have more information about when compared with others. So when we're looking at this table and looking at statistics that are available online, we need to think about how numbers are compared or created, statistics are created based on total populations. So let's look first of all at the fact that the total world population at the time that COVID-19 was identified, and that was in December 2019, the approximate world population was 7.577 billion with a B people. That means about 7,577,000,000 people were around, okay? The Spanish flu, which went from 1918 to 1919, a period of about 18 months, the population was about 1.8 billion, again with a B, which means 1,800,000,000. And for the Black Plague, we don't have, we can only estimate the number of people that were around at that time because we don't have any way of, we didn't have a way of taking a census. So we're estimating based on exponential growth from one period in time to another in the way that populations usually develop. And so for that period of time during that plague, which was from 1346 to 1353, the estimated world population was only about 475 million people. The number of deaths, if you go across on the second row for COVID-19, and of course remember this is still going on, so this number is not all of the deaths that will be recorded, is approximately 348,000 people at this time. For the Spanish flu during that nearly 2-year period of time, 100 million people died. And for the Black Plague during that 7-year period of time, 285 million people died. Now, when you look at these numbers, you also have to remember that these are numbers that have are not equally applied across the world. So in other words, if when you look at the 60%, that was the rate of people who died worldwide. However, when you think about the number of people who died in Europe, the number of people was closer to 75 to 80% of European population died, and not nearly as many people who lived in Africa or Asia at that time perished. The same thing was true with the Spanish flu. 10% of the world population died, but when you look at the number of people who died in the United States, it was quite a few more than 10%. It was closer to 20% in our country. And when you look at the number of deaths for COVID-19 at 348,000, that comes out to 4/10,000ths of a percent. But if you look at the number of people who've died in the United States in, for example, nursing homes, that accounts for about, and we're at almost 100,000 deaths now in the United States, which we have quite a few. You know, when you're looking at this total number of being 348,000, we're at almost 100,000, so we account for almost a third of the deaths. We're talking about most of those taking place in nursing homes, places where people live in very crowded conditions. They share rooms, they share air, you know. So when you're talking about what's going on, you have to think about not that this might be the worldwide percentage, but various populations based on ages and locations are differentially affected, which means they aren't all affected the same. So this, when we start talking about numbers and looking at research and talking about scientific investigations, we start thinking about where did the scientific method come from. And this week you're going to start working on terminology that goes along with the scientific method. You're going to be watching a video here in just a few minutes that is about Galileo Galilei, and I know you watched one a couple of weeks ago about him, but this one is a little different. It's introducing you to terminology that has to do with scientific research, lab reports, and things like that. And it's going to be dealing with a historic experiment that he ran, trying to figure out whether gravity pulled the same on everything or if it pulled more on heavier things and less on lighter things. At the time that he did this experiment, the theory was that, or the belief was that if you weighed 100 pounds and you had a child that weighed 10 pounds, that the gravity pulled more on you and less on the child. Oh, and I just had a rooster let me know that he's hungry. So whenever we talk about Galileo in this particular experiment, he was actually leaning out of the Leaning Tower of Pisa with two different cannonballs, one that was really large and one that wasn't quite so large. And he dropped them at the same time. And if it was true that gravity didn't pull on them at the same rate, then they would have fallen at different rates. So in other words, people expected the heavier cannonball to hit the ground first and the lighter cannonball to hit the ground later. And so when he ran this experiment, he discovered that, sure enough, gravity pulled the same on both of them, and it didn't matter whether it was a large cannonball or a smaller cannonball, they hit the ground. If they were dropped at the same time, they hit the ground at the same time. So I hope you enjoy the video. You have two worksheets that you're going to complete today. Those will be due at the end of the period, and then tomorrow, Wednesday, you're going to be looking at another video. We're going to work together on these same terms and using them a little bit differently. Hope you have a good afternoon. You are able to get all of this finished. We need to really kind of put the pedal to the metal. This is racing to the end of the week. This is the end of the grading period, and then we'll roll over and start again in the summer session next week. We want to make sure that we're keeping our effort high and the grades will match it. So you all have a good day. Hope, like I said, that you enjoy the video and take care. I'll come back with a different mask on tomorrow. See you soon. Bye-bye.